At 2:13 in the morning, Claire Morgan pressed her thumb beneath the clay woman's left eye and realized she had rebuilt her own face. Rain struck the basement windows of the Greyford County Forensic Laboratory. Above her, the courthouse clock groaned through the storm. Before her, an unidentified skull stared out from beneath 22 years of silence. The clay nose was hers. The slight asymmetry of the mouth was hers. Even the shallow indentation above the right eyebrow, the mark Claire covered before court appearances, had emerged beneath her hands, without intention. She stepped back. That's impossible. The skull had been recovered beneath the demolished courthouse annex. No clothing, no jewelry, no dental records, only a corroded evidence tag and soil packed into the jaw. Female, approximately 18 to 22, dead for 22 years. Claire was 28. She had been 6 when the woman died. The facial estimation program rotated the completed image. The screen showed the same woman Claire saw every morning, only younger and emptied of expression. The printer activated. Final estimate. Date of death, October 14, 2004, probability match. Claire Evelyn Morgan, 99.7%. The laboratory door clicked open. The man who entered wore a black overcoat, darkened by rain. Roman DeLuca moved through Greyford with the certainty of a man who owned its streets, judges, and secrets. He was 40, broad-shouldered, and frighteningly calm. The DeLuca name appeared in half the sealed files Claire had been ordered never to open. No guard followed him. That frightened her more. Claire reached beneath the table for the emergency alarm. Roman's gaze dropped to her hand. If you press it, the building locks from the inside. She stopped. How did you get in? The same way the skull did. His eyes moved to the reconstruction. Something cracked in his expression. Not surprise. Grief. He stopped before the clay face, as if he had waited years to be punished by it. Do you know her? Claire asked. Yes. Then say her name. Roman looked at her. I buried that face once to keep you alive. The lights went out. Emergency lamps flooded the laboratory red. Security shutters crashed over every exit, and boots struck the corridor outside. Claire grabbed the alarm. Roman caught her wrist. Let go. Listen. You admitted to burying a woman with my face. I admitted to burying a face. A voice came over the intercom. Claire Morgan. Step away from Roman DeLuca. He is armed and wanted in connection with the courthouse remains. Claire searched his coat line. Are you armed? Yes, he opened the coat enough to reveal a holstered pistol. If I intended to hurt you, you would never have seen me enter. The intercom repeated the command. Roman took the printed match report, folded it, and placed it inside his coat. That is evidence, Claire said. It is a death warrant. For whom? For anyone who knows you are not the woman in that grave. A burst shattered the observation window. Roman drove Claire behind the steel examination table and covered her as glass scattered across the floor. A second burst tore through the reconstruction stand. The clay face spun sideways. One cheek broke away. They're shooting into a forensic laboratory. They're erasing it. Police officers? Task force officers. Not the same thing. Roman's arm tightened around her. Beneath the cold control of his face, his heart was beating too fast. Not for himself. For her. Claire hated that she noticed. Another impact struck the door. Roman pressed a black device against the floor. A hidden latch released beneath the autopsy sink, and a tile panel lifted to reveal an iron stairway. Claire stared. There is a tunnel under my laboratory. There are tunnels beneath every courthouse room where evidence has disappeared. He forced the panel open. Claire did not move. Roman looked at her. Stay and ask the men outside why a dead woman's molar was entered under your biological mother's file number. My mother died when I was a baby. No, the woman who raised you died when you were 19. Claire slapped away the hand he offered. Do not rewrite my life during a raid. I did not rewrite it, his voice lowered. I only paid for the ink. The door bent inward. Roman stepped between Claire and the corridor, drew his pistol, and held out his free hand. Come with me." Claire looked at the ruined face, the armed man, and the tunnel beneath the room where she had spent 6 years giving names back to the dead. "You expect me to trust you?" No, his gaze stayed on the failing door. "I expect you to survive me long enough to hate me properly." The lock tore loose. Claire took his hand. Roman pulled her into the tunnel and sealed the panel above them as the laboratory door crashed open. They descended through wet darkness. Roman moved ahead, one hand holding the pistol, the other refusing to release hers. Behind them, voices spread through the laboratory. "Find the reconstruction, destroy the skull, and Morgan." A pause. "She died 22 years ago. Make the paperwork accurate." Claire froze. Roman turned. Even in darkness, she could feel him watching her. At the bottom of the stairs stood an old evidence cart. A child's file rested on top beneath cracked plastic. Claire lifted it. The photograph showed a 6-year-old girl beneath the courthouse clock in a yellow raincoat. The child had Claire's eyes. Across the file, faded red ink declared, "Emily Vale, deceased, October 14, 2004. Claire looked at Roman. "Who is Emily Vale?" His face became unreadable. "You were." The tunnel lights came on. Hundreds of sealed boxes stretched into the darkness. Each bore the photograph of an unidentified child Claire had reconstructed during her career. Every box carried Roman DeLuca's private collection seal. Claire released his hand. "You own my cases. I made sure they reached you." "Why?" Roman looked toward the skull file in her arms. "Because my sister died without her name." A metal door slammed somewhere ahead. Roman extinguished the lights and pulled Claire against the wall. His hand rose toward her face, stopping a fraction from her skin. Footsteps approached. A man's voice echoed through the passage. "Mr. DeLuca's orders changed. Bring Claire alive." Claire whispered, "Your orders?" Roman's gaze held hers in the dark. "No." He raised his pistol toward the approaching light. "My father's." Roman fired before the approaching light reached the corner. The bullet struck a rusted pipe above the intruder. Steam burst across the tunnel, swallowing the passage in white pressure and metal screams. "Run," Claire did. Roman caught her hand and pulled her between rows of sealed evidence boxes. Behind them, men shouted through the steam. "She has the file." He forced Claire through a steel gate and spun the locking wheel. "You planned that," she said. "I plan for many things. Did you plan for me to find my own death certificate?" "No." The answer came too quickly to be a lie. A red emergency lamp pulsed above them. Claire held Emily Vale's file against her chest. "If your father wants me alive, why did those officers shoot into the laboratory?" Alive is not the same as unharmed. What does he want? Something you saw. I was 6. You remembered enough to rebuild that face. Roman moved deeper into the corridor. Claire stayed where she was. "I'm not taking another step until you explain why your seal is on every unidentified child I reconstructed. I sent the cases because official channels buried them. That explains the files. Not you. The first child you reconstructed had been ignored for 13 years. You gave her a face in 6 days. How do you know that? I know everything connected to your work. That is surveillance. I did not deny it." "What do you call it?" Roman looked at Emily's file. "Dept." The gate behind them shook. Only then did Claire notice blood darkening his cuff. "You're hurt. Not enough to matter." "There is a safe room beneath the old annex," he said. "We reach it, you examine the file, and I contact someone outside my father's network. Do I trust them? You do not trust anyone. That is becoming a pattern. Good." They moved. The next corridor was lined with metal drawers. An open evidence box rested on a cart. Inside lay a skull with wax packed along the cheekbones. Claire stopped. "This alteration is recent. What did they change?" "The nose, teeth, and brow. They changed her estimated ancestry and age. To prevent identification, to send investigators toward the wrong family." A tag hung from the jaw. "Case closed, transferred for cremation." "This woman was about to disappear twice," Claire said. "You can reverse it." "Yes. How long?" 2 days. You have 20 minutes. That is not how science works, no. It is how survival works. He opened a cabinet containing calipers, clay, and a compact scanner. You built a forensic station underground? My sister was not the only person they altered. The gate behind them broke open. Roman killed the light and pushed Claire behind the drawers. His body covered hers. One arm braced beside her head, the other holding his pistol toward the corridor. A flashlight beam swept closer. His hand rose toward Claire's mouth, then stopped before touching her. "Can you stay silent?" he breathed. She nodded. The restraint in that unfinished touch disturbed her more than contact would have. An officer entered. Roman waited until the man passed, then moved. An elbow, a muffled impact, and the officer collapsed. "You killed him." "No." Roman checked his pulse. "He'll wish I had." The officer's radio crackled. "The artist still has the childhood file." "They know what I took," Claire whispered. "They have cameras. Then they know where we are. These tunnels predate their system." He took the officer's access card and opened a hidden panel. A staircase descended beneath the wall. Claire caught his sleeve. "You knew me when I was 6. How long did you watch me?" "I lost you when you were 6. "For how long?" 11 months. "What happened? When I found you again, you did not know your own name." The radio erupted. "Seal the lower annex. Vittorio wants the girl before sunrise." Roman pulled Claire down the stairs. The safe room had walnut walls, leather chairs, a stocked bar and no windows. Roman locked 3 bolts and activated a signal jammer. Claire placed Emily's file on the desk. "Take off your coat." "It is a graze." She pulled the coat from his shoulder. A bullet had cut through his upper arm. "You stocked this room. For emergencies. What kind?" His gaze met hers in the mirror. "You." Claire pressed the gauze harder. "You do not get to say things like that after admitting you fabricated my life. I paid people who knew how to make records survive scrutiny. My birth certificate, false. My adoption, false. My mother, real." Claire stopped. "The woman who raised me, she found you after I lost you. What was her real name?" "Margaret Vale." Claire looked at Emily's file. "Vale. You chose that surname when she asked your name." A memory flashed: yellow fabric, cold rain, a woman kneeling, a courthouse clock above her. What did I see? Councilman Daniel Mercer beneath the courthouse clock. Greyford's most famous unsolved assassination. "And your father was there." Roman said nothing. "You saw it too." "Yes. And Sofia. She helped get you out." "Then where is she?" Roman's face emptied. "In the grave you opened." Claire looked at the photograph. The skull belonged to a woman around 19. Sofia was 19, but the face became mine, because the bone was altered before burial. "Your father made her look like me." "No," Roman's voice broke for the first time. "I did." He pressed a remote. A hidden wall slid open. Behind it were hundreds of photographs. Claire at 7, leaving school beneath an umbrella. Claire at 12, outside a hospital. Claire at 16, carrying charcoal sketches. Claire at 19, crying after Margaret's funeral. Claire at 23, asleep over a forensic textbook. Claire entering the courthouse that morning. Every year of her life covered the wall. Roman stood beneath them like a man awaiting judgment. "You said you lost me for 11 months. "I did. And after you found me, I never lost you again." She saw a photograph taken through her bedroom window. "You watched me sleep to confirm you were alive." For 21 years, at first, Claire turned on him. And later, Roman looked at every version of her with the restraint of a man standing at the edge of a confession he had denied too long. "Later," he said, "I no longer knew how to stop." Claire stared at the photograph taken through her bedroom window. She was 23 in it, asleep over an open anatomy textbook, one cheek resting against pages marked with charcoal fingerprints. The curtains had been partly closed. Roman should never have been able to see her. "How close were you?" He did not pretend to misunderstand. Across the street, in a car, sometimes. There was an empty apartment. The horror came slowly, not because a stranger had watched her, because Roman DeLuca spoke of those years as though they had belonged to him. Claire tore the photograph from the wall. You entered my home? Never while you were there. That is not better. No, you knew what school I attended, where I worked. When my mother died, yes, you photographed me at her funeral. I was not the photographer. You paid someone. Yes. Her hand moved before she decided to use it. The slap struck his face hard enough to turn his head. Roman did not react beyond the slow return of his gaze. You don't get to stand there like you expected that. I did. You built a shrine to my life. I built a record that you were still alive. For whom? For me, the answer was almost worse than a lie. Claire threw the photograph onto the desk. You anonymously funded the forensic program at Ohio State. Roman remained silent. The scholarship, named after an unidentified child. The private grant that paid for my graduate research. That was you. Yes, the museum fellowship. Yes, my first courthouse appointment. I recommended your work. To whom? To people who understood that refusing me would be expensive. Claire laughed once without humor. You manufactured my career. No, his voice sharpened. I opened doors. You were the one good enough to walk through them. You made sure every road led back to you. They led back to the unidentified. Because of Sofia? Roman looked toward the clay equipment in the adjoining room. Because she spent 22 years beneath a courthouse under your name. The words stripped the anger from Claire for one terrible second. Roman crossed to a metal cabinet and withdrew a sealed folder. Inside were photographs of unidentified children from across the Midwest. Some had case numbers Claire recognized, others had never reached public databases. Sofia used to draw faces, he said, not well. She made everyone look disappointed. Claire did not smile. She believed forgotten people became trapped between death and memory. After she disappeared, I began collecting cases the departments had abandoned and sending them to me. At first because you were talented, and later, his eyes lifted, because every face you restored felt like one less person I had failed. Claire studied him. He stood in front of hundreds of stolen images of her and spoke about mercy as though it could exist beside control. You should have told me. If I approached you, my father would have known you were Emily. So you watched from the dark instead. Yes, you could have stopped after Vittorio lost interest. He never lost interest. A monitor on the desk flickered. The signal jammer had failed. A courthouse security feed appeared, showing officers moving through the tunnels. Roman's phone vibrated once. He read the screen. We need to leave. I'm not finished. My father's men reached the lower annex. You said this room was secure. It was. Claire lifted the altered skull from the evidence cart. I'm not leaving her. Roman stared at the remains. You cannot identify her here. I can identify what they changed. He checked the feed. 5 minutes. Claire positioned the skull beneath the portable scanner. The screen built a 3-dimensional model while Roman opened a weapons cabinet. She compared the altered nasal bridge, shaved molars, and artificial bone filler. This wasn't done after death. Roman looked over. The injuries healed. She survived the first reconstruction. Someone surgically changed her face years before she died. Claire removed the wax from the brow ridge. A fracture line appeared. Her memory caught on a photograph from an old courthouse archive. A woman beside Councilman Mercer. Dark hair, narrow jaw, a scar above the right eye. Evelyn Shaw. Roman stopped. The court stenographer. She vanished after Mercer was killed. She testified that she left Greyford voluntarily. No. Someone changed her face and kept her alive. Claire rotated the scan. Why preserve a witness for years? To control the people she could expose. A gunshot sounded beyond the safe room door. The first bolt trembled. Roman shut down the monitor and handed Claire a waterproof coat. We go through the storm drain. She placed the skull in a transport case. You knew Evelyn. I knew her name. Was she there the night Mercer died? Yes. What did she see? Roman looked at Emily Vale's childhood file. The same thing you did. The outer lock snapped. Roman pulled Claire through a rear panel into a narrow maintenance passage. Rainwater rushed beneath iron grating. Thunder rolled above the courthouse. They climbed toward an exterior hatch. Roman emerged first into the storm and drew Claire onto an abandoned service road behind the annex. Rain blinded her instantly. Black Suvs waited at both ends of the street. Roman took her hand and ran toward a marble warehouse across the road. Headlights flared. A vehicle accelerated toward them. Roman pushed Claire behind a stone barrier. The transport case struck the pavement and slid into the rain. Claire lunged for it. Roman caught her waist. "Leave it." No, she broke free. The Suv swerved closer. Roman reached the case first, threw it toward Claire, then turned his body between her and the vehicle. The side mirror struck his shoulder. He hit the pavement. "Roman!" Claire dragged him behind the barrier as the Suv disappeared through the rain. His injured arm hung unnaturally. "You're dislocated." "I know." The marble warehouse door was chained. Roman fired once through the lock. Inside, unfinished statues stood beneath hanging plastic sheets. Lightning turned them into pale figures, watching from the darkness. Claire forced Roman onto a workbench. "Sit. I can still move." "Not correctly." She cut his shirt at the shoulder. Bruising spread beneath the skin. "This will hurt." I assumed. Claire repositioned the joint. Roman's uninjured hand closed around the edge of the bench, but he made no sound. When the shoulder returned to place, his breath broke once. "You can scream," she said. "I don't." "Of course you don't." She found bandages in an emergency cabinet and bound his arm against his chest. Rain hammered the warehouse roof. Roman watched her hands. "You used to count when you were afraid." Claire stopped. "How would you know that?" "At 12, before your mother's surgery. You counted ceiling tiles in the hospital. You were there, across the waiting room. And at 19, outside the funeral chapel. 16, at your first student exhibition. 21, his jaw tightened. "What happened when I was 21? You went on 3 dates with a man named Aaron Bell." Claire stared. Roman looked away. "You threatened him." "No, he left town. He stole money from 2 women before you." "So you investigated him?" "Yes. Because he dated me. Because he touched you." There it was. Not protection. Possession stripped of its polite name. "You had no right." "I know. Did you hurt him?" "No." "What did you do?" "I showed him what would happen if he stayed." "That is a threat." "Yes." Claire stepped away. "You say yais as though honesty absolves you." "It does not." "Then why admit it?" "Because you deserve the truth even when it makes you leave." Thunder shook the building. A section of ceiling plaster collapsed behind Claire. She turned too late. Roman caught her and pulled her against him. The plaster shattered where she had stood. For one suspended moment, her palms rested against his chest. His face was inches from hers, rain still running along his jaw. His hand rose, almost touched her cheek, then stopped. Claire could feel the heat of his fingers without contact. "Why do you keep doing that?" she whispered. "Doing what?" "Stopping." Roman's gaze dropped to her mouth. "Because wanting something does not make it mine." The answer entered the space between them and changed it. A siren sounded outside. Roman released her first. Claire turned toward the transport case, needing distance. The impact had cracked one corner. A thin envelope had slipped from beneath the foam lining. She opened it. Inside was an old photograph. 3 children stood beneath the Greyford courthouse clock. A 6-year-old girl in a yellow raincoat, a dark-haired teenage boy holding her hand, and beside them a 19-year-old girl with Roman's eyes. On the back, someone had written, "Emily, Roman, and Sofia." The night before the face was buried. Claire looked up. Roman had gone pale. "You told me you found me after I lost my memory." "I did. This was taken before that." "Yes." She turned the photograph over again. The child was not merely holding Roman's hand. She was leaning into him as though she trusted him more than anyone else in the world. Claire's voice became almost inaudible. What were you to me? Roman looked at the photograph of the three of them, then at the woman who remembered none of it. The last person you asked to save you. The sirens stopped outside the warehouse. That frightened Claire more than their arrival. Roman extinguished the work lights and moved between the unfinished statues. Claire followed with the transport case pressed against her chest. Through a crack in the boarded window, she saw the black SUVs idling beneath the rain. No officers emerged. "They're waiting," she whispered, "for us to choose the obvious exit. What is the less obvious one?" Roman looked toward a marble angel standing against the rear wall. He pressed 2 fingers into the carved folds of its robe. Stone shifted. A section of the floor opened beneath the statue, revealing narrow steps descending into darkness. Claire stared at him. "How many hidden rooms does your family own?" "Too many." "And this one?" This was Sofia's. The stairway led beneath the warehouse into a vaulted corridor of black and white marble. Old museum lamps flickered awake as Roman passed. Claire saw faces everywhere, busts of judges, politicians, police commissioners, men whose names appeared on Greyford buildings. Each sculpture had been carved without eyes. At the corridor's end stood a bronze plaque, the DeLuca collection of civic memory. "This museum closed before I was born," Claire said. "It never closed." It moved underground. Roman guided her past a locked gallery. Behind the glass were dozens of unfinished human heads. Some had smooth faces. Others had features carved over earlier features, as though one identity had been trapped beneath another. Claire stopped before a woman whose marble cheek had been cut away to reveal a second mouth. "These are witnesses. Yes, your family commissioned portraits of people whose identities they changed. My father called it preservation. It's a trophy room." "Yes." He did not soften the answer. A door stood at the end of the gallery, painted pale blue instead of black. Roman hesitated before opening it. Inside was a bedroom preserved beneath layers of dust, a narrow bed, a record player, charcoal drawings pinned to the walls, a red wool coat hanging beside the door. The air smelled faintly of cedar and dried roses. Claire set down the transport case. This was Sofia's room. She lived here during the final months. "Why underground?" "My father told people she was studying in Italy." Claire crossed to the drawings. Most were faces, courthouse clerks, children, street vendors, Roman as a boy, scowling beside a piano. One drawing showed Claire in her yellow raincoat. Beneath it, Sofia had written, "Emily remembers everything she sees." Claire touched the paper. "I remembered the assassination." Roman stood in the doorway, as if entering the room would disturb the dead. "You were beneath the courthouse clock with Sofia. Councilman Mercer came through the service entrance. My father followed him and ordered someone to kill him." "Yes." "Who pulled the trigger?" Roman's silence answered. "You? No." "Then who?" "My uncle, but Vittorio ordered it." "Yes." Claire looked around the room. "Why was I there?" "Your biological mother worked in the records office. Sofia volunteered at the courthouse archive. She watched you when your mother worked late. My mother saw it too. She saw enough to understand what had happened. What happened to her? She tried to take you out of Greyford." Roman's voice lowered. My father stopped her. Claire closed her eyes. For years she had believed she possessed no memory of her biological parents. Now she saw the outline of a woman running through rain, pulling a child behind her. "What did you do?" "I found you beneath the west stairwell after your mother disappeared." "How old were you?" 18. "And Sofia?" 19. Claire turned toward him. "You were children." "We did not feel like children. No one ever does while an adult is destroying them." The words struck him visibly. Roman looked away first. "Sofia knew an evidence technician who could alter records. We created a death certificate under the name Emily Vale. We needed remains that would survive inspection if my father opened the grave." Claire looked toward the transport case. "Sofia's remains?" "No, not then." He finally entered the room. There was an unidentified child in the county morgue. Similar age, similar height. The technician agreed to substitute her records. Claire's stomach tightened. You stole another child's identity. I told myself I was borrowing it to save you. And her family? We never found them. You didn't try hard enough. No. Roman accepted the accusation without resistance. Claire opened Sofia's desk drawers. Inside were clippings about Mercer's assassination and maps of Greyford bus routes. One ticket had been purchased for Chicago, 2 passengers, Sofia DeLuca, Emily Vale. She planned to take me away. Yes. What changed? My father discovered the false records before you could leave. Roman's reflection appeared in the mirror behind Claire. Sofia convinced him the child in hiding was her. She wore your raincoat. She repeated details only you should have known. So he believed she was me. For one night. Claire understood before he continued. He took her. Roman's jaw tightened. I followed them to the courthouse basement. I reached the evidence room after he had already learned the truth. What did he do to her? He made her choose. Between what? Your location and her life. Claire turned slowly, and Sofia chose me. She told him you had already left Ohio. The silence in the room became unbearable. Roman walked to the red coat and touched the sleeve with his uninjured hand. My father ordered me to prepare the remains for burial. He wanted your death certificate to become real. Claire looked at the skull case. You altered Sofia's face. Yes. How? Roman's eyes did not leave the coat. I knew your measurements, the distance between your eyes, the shape of your jaw, the fracture above your eyebrow, because you had memorized me. Yes, you reshaped your sister's skull to resemble a 6-year-old child. I altered the forensic markers after death, the age estimate, dental records, facial proportions, enough to confuse anyone who looked later. His voice remained controlled, but his fingers trembled against the red wool. Claire imagined 18-year-old Roman alone beneath the courthouse, changing his sister's identity because his father had ordered him to turn grief into evidence. Why didn't you bury the unidentified child? Because Sofia made me promise that if she did not return, her body would be used to keep you safe. That does not make it right. No, you obeyed her. I obeyed because I could not save both of you. Roman looked at Claire, and I had already failed her. Something inside Claire's anger shifted. It did not disappear. It became heavier, more complicated. She moved closer. Roman stood still while she reached for his injured shoulder and adjusted the makeshift sling. You were 18, she said. I knew what I was doing. You knew what you were told to do. That distinction does not return her. No. Claire's fingers remained against his shirt. Rainwater still darkened his collar. A thin cut crossed his cheek from the warehouse glass. She touched the skin beside it. Roman inhaled. His hand rose toward her waist, then stopped. The same restraint, the same war. You keep acting as though touching me would make you him, Claire whispered. I have taken enough choices from you. This one would be mine. His eyes searched hers. Claire leaned closer. For one moment, she felt his breath against her mouth. Then the record player clicked on by itself. A woman's voice filled the room. Roman, if you are hearing this, then Emily came back. They separated. Roman turned toward the machine. Sofia's recorded voice continued through soft static. Do not let her forgive you too quickly. You always mistake guilt for love. Claire looked at him. He had gone completely still. The recording ended. Beneath the record player, a drawer had opened. Claire pulled it wider. Inside lay Sofia's original dental chart, fingerprints, and a signed statement from the courthouse technician, all dated 20 years earlier, not hidden by Vittorio, filed under Roman DeLuca's private seal. Claire read the technician's statement. I informed Roman DeLuca that the remains could be identified as Sofia DeLuca through dental comparison. He ordered the comparison suspended. Her hands went cold. You had this. Roman did not answer. You could have given Sofia her name 20 years ago. Yes. Why didn't you? Because the moment she was identified, Anyone examining her case would discover that Emily Vale never died, and that Claire Morgan was still alive. Yes, Claire held the evidence between them. You didn't only bury Sofia to save me. Roman's face carried no defense now, only the certainty that the judgment he had feared for 22 years had finally arrived. You kept her buried, Claire said, because you could not bear to lose me. Claire read the technician's statement twice, then a third time. The words did not change. Roman DeLuca had possessed the evidence for 20 years. He had known Sofia could be identified. He had known her name could be restored, and he had chosen silence. Outside the hidden bedroom, something heavy struck the museum entrance. Vittorio's men had found them. Roman moved toward the door. Claire stepped in front of him. You don't get to protect me from this conversation. I am protecting you from the men upstairs. You kept your sister buried for me. Yes, the single word landed harder than any excuse. You let me build a career identifying forgotten women while Sofia remained beneath the courthouse. I knew what that made me. No, you knew what it cost you. Claire held up the dental chart. You never asked what it cost her. Roman's face tightened. If the remains had been identified, my father would have reopened every record connected to Emily Vale. He would have found Margaret. He would have found you. So you decided for me you were a child. I stopped being a child 20 years ago, and he never stopped looking. Claire crossed to the wall of Sofia's drawings. One charcoal face had been erased so many times that the paper had worn thin. You sent every unidentified child to my desk because you felt guilty, because they deserved names, except Sofia. Roman said nothing. That is the truth, isn't it? You could save strangers because strangers could not expose me. I could keep them alive in public records, but not her. His eyes lowered. No, the admission carried no defense. Claire wanted him to argue. She wanted him to become the cold, dangerous man Greyford feared, so she could hate him without hesitation. Instead, he stood inside his dead sister's room and allowed Claire to see the exact shape of his shame. It made the betrayal worse. The museum doors shook again. Roman checked his weapon. We leave through the eastern gallery. Claire folded the technician's statement and placed it inside her coat. His gaze followed the movement. What are you doing? Giving Sofia her name. If you release that evidence now, my father will know everything. He already knows I'm alive. He does not know what you remember. I remember enough. Roman stepped closer. If you expose the file, he will destroy every witness connected to Mercer. Then we expose all of it at once. To whom? The public. His expression changed. Not anger, fear. You cannot control what happens after that. That has been your excuse for controlling everything before it. A gunshot cracked above them. Dust fell from the ceiling. Roman reached for Claire's arm. She pulled away. I am leaving with the evidence. I know. You are not stopping me. I want to. Why don't you? Because you are right. The answer stunned her. Roman opened the blue door and looked into the gallery. Stay behind me. They moved through the underground collection as emergency lights pulsed over the eyeless statues. At the eastern stairwell, 2 armed men appeared. Roman pushed Claire behind a marble column. The first shot broke the hand from a statue beside her. Roman fired twice. 1 man fell. The other disappeared behind the staircase. Claire saw a second route through the sculpture room. This way. Roman followed her between suspended marble slabs. A third man stepped from the shadows and aimed at Claire. Roman crossed the distance before the weapon discharged. He struck the man against the wall, disarmed him, and drove him to the floor with frightening efficiency. The man tried to rise. Roman pressed the gun beneath his jaw. Who ordered the courthouse attack? The man smiled through blood. Your father said you would choose her again. Roman's finger tightened. Claire touched his wrist. Don't. The violence in his face did not disappear, but the weapon lowered. He struck the man unconscious instead. Claire stared at him. You stopped. You asked. That has never mattered before. It matters now. They reached a freight elevator leading into the warehouse. Roman activated it. Claire studied him beneath the flickering light. If I expose you, the government will seize your companies. Yes, your own men may turn against you. Yes, you could lose everything. He looked at her. I lost everything the night Sofia died. The elevator doors opened. Rain swept through the ruined warehouse. Roman led Claire to a hidden garage where a black sedan waited beneath dusty tarps. He drove without headlights through old service roads behind the Courthouse district. Claire sat with Sofia's records in her lap. Where are we going? There is a federal magistrate outside my father's influence. I'm not giving this to one judge. Then, what are you planning? She removed her phone. The signal had returned. Claire searched for the number of Mara Ellison, an investigative journalist who had spent years documenting sealed evidence cases in Greyford. Roman recognized the name. She will publish before verifying the full chain of custody. She'll verify enough. She may expose your identity. My identity is already a grave. Roman pulled the car beneath an abandoned railroad bridge. Rain struck the windshield. If you send that file, there is no version of your life that remains untouched. There hasn't been since you entered my laboratory. Claire called Mara. Roman did not stop her. When the journalist answered, Claire spoke quickly. My name is Claire Morgan. I have evidence connecting the Mercer assassination, the DeLuca family, and the corrupt Courthouse task force. Silence. Then Mara said, Where are you? Not safe. Can you prove what you're saying? Claire looked at Roman. Yes. She photographed Sofia's dental chart, the technician's statement, and Emily Vale's death certificate. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Roman watched her prepare the message that could destroy him. Say something, Claire whispered. What would change your mind, I don't know. Then I will not manipulate you. She searched his face. Do you want me to protect you? No. The word came softly. I want you to do what I was too weak to do. Claire sent the files. The message showed delivered. Roman closed his eyes for 1 second. By sunrise, Greyford had begun to fracture. Mara published the first evidence online. National reporters surrounded the courthouse. Federal investigators arrived from Columbus. The county task force denied everything, then contradicted itself within an hour. Sofia DeLuca's name appeared on every local news channel. So did Roman's. He arranged for Claire to testify at an emergency public hearing inside the old federal courtroom. The gallery overflowed with journalists, victims' families, and officers who no longer knew which superiors they could trust. Roman sat alone at the defense table, no attorney, no advisors, no bodyguards. Claire stood before the microphone, with Sofia's reconstructed image displayed behind her. She told the court about Emily Vale, about the altered skulls, about the hidden museum, about Vittorio. Then she looked directly at Roman. Roman DeLuca saved my life when I was 6 years old. Whispers moved through the courtroom. He also concealed evidence, manipulated my identity, and prevented Sofia DeLuca from being identified for 20 years. Roman did not look away. The prosecutor asked, Did Miss DeLuca attempt to stop you from testifying? No. Did he threaten you? No. Did he control your education and employment without your knowledge? Claire's throat tightened. Yes, the courtroom erupted. Roman's companies were frozen before the hearing ended. His private security licenses were revoked. Men who had bowed to him that morning denied ever serving him by noon. When reporters surrounded him outside the courtroom, Roman gave only one statement. Claire Morgan is telling the truth. She heard it from the top of the courthouse steps. For the first time in 22 years, Roman DeLuca had chosen exposure over burial. Claire wanted that choice to matter. She hated that it did. Rain began falling again. Roman stood behind the barricade while federal agents searched his car. Their eyes met across the courthouse square. He looked like a man watching his own execution and accepting it because she was still alive to witness it. Claire took one step toward him. A black van stopped beside the curb. The side door opened. A hand seized her from behind. Claire drove her elbow backward, but a cloth covered her mouth. Roman saw her. His expression changed before the world blurred. He broke through the federal barricade. Officers shouted. Claire heard gunfire, tires screaming, and Roman calling the name she had forgotten. "Emily!" The van door slammed. As darkness closed around her, an older man leaned forward from the opposite seat. Silver hair, Roman's eyes. Vittorio DeLuca smiled. "My son finally taught you how to destroy him." He placed Sofia's red wool coat across Claire's knees. "Now you're going to show Greyford why you should have stayed dead." Claire woke beneath white marble. For one disoriented second, she thought she was back in the forensic laboratory, staring up at the cold ceiling while rain struck the courthouse windows. Then the pain in her wrists returned. She was seated in a carved wooden chair at the center of the DeLuca gallery. Black restraints circled her arms. Sofia's red coat lay across her lap. Around her, rows of marble faces watched from illuminated pedestals. Some belonged to judges, some to witnesses. Some had no names at all. Directly in front of Claire stood the clay reconstruction she had completed in the laboratory. Her own face. The damaged cheek had been repaired. The grey clay had been painted with pale skin, dark hair, and the exact shade of Claire's eyes. Beneath it, a brass plaque read, "Emily Vale, aged 6, deceased, October 14, 2004. Vittorio DeLuca stood beside the sculpture with one hand resting on its shoulder. Without the courtroom cameras and tailored distance, he looked older than Claire had imagined. Silver threaded through his hair. A narrow scar crossed his left temple. Roman had the same eyes. That was where the resemblance ended. "You restored it beautifully," Vittorio said. Claire pulled against the restraints. "You abducted me from a federal courthouse. I retrieved property stolen from my family. I am not your property. No, you are evidence." He walked behind the sculpture. "Evidence that records are more powerful than memory. The state says Emily Vale died. Therefore, Emily Vale died. My name is Claire Morgan, because my son purchased it for you." Vittorio pressed a control. Screens lowered from the ceiling. They showed Claire's hearing, Roman's companies being searched, and federal agents entering DeLuca properties across Greyford. On another screen, reporters stood outside the courthouse. Vittorio watched the collapse of his empire without visible concern. "Roman always confused sacrifice with rebellion," he said. "As a boy, he believed suffering for someone made his actions pure. He exposed you. He exposed himself. He told the truth. Only because you asked him to." Vittorio turned toward Claire. "That is the danger of you." Claire forced her voice to remain steady. "Roman's choices belong to Roman. That is what you believe because he spent 22 years arranging the world around you without allowing you to see his hands. You taught him to do that. I taught him that love is leverage, and Sofia." For the first time, Vittorio's expression shifted. Not grief, annoyance. "Sofia was sentimental. She died protecting me. She died because she overestimated Roman." Claire looked at the red coat across her knees. "What did you do to her?" Vittorio poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter. "She returned to the museum after helping you escape. She believed she could persuade me to let both of you live. You knew she wasn't me. Eventually, you still killed her." I corrected an act of betrayal. Claire's hands tightened beneath the restraints. Roman arrived too late. Yes, the answer was casual. He found her in the lower evidence room. She was still conscious. Claire felt the air leave her lungs. "You told him she was already dead. I told him saving her would reveal where you had been taken." Vittorio lifted the glass. He had one vehicle. 1 hour before the roadblocks closed. He could take Sofia to a hospital, or he could find the woman who had driven away with you. Margaret Vale. Claire saw fragments again. Rain against a car window. A woman telling her not to look behind them. A young man's face disappearing beneath the courthouse clock. What did Roman choose? You. The word entered Claire like cold metal. Vittorio studied her reaction. He left Sofia alive beneath the courthouse and followed your trail north. By the time he returned, she had stopped breathing. Claire looked at the painted reconstruction. Roman had not simply failed to reach Sofia. He had reached her and walked away, because Claire was missing. Vittorio stepped closer. Now you understand why my son could never identify her. The dental charts were not the greatest evidence he buried. What was? The fact that Sofia might have lived if he had chosen differently. Claire closed her eyes. All Roman's silence took on a new shape. The hidden photographs, the scholarships, the strangers he identified through her hands. He had built a life around Claire because Sofia had died in the space that choice created. You made him choose between two people he loved. I taught him power. No, you taught him guilt. Vittorio smiled faintly, and guilt made him useful. A side door opened. 2 task force officers entered with camera equipment. Behind them, a large digital screen displayed the courthouse seal. Vittorio set down his glass. At 9 tonight, you will record a statement. Claire looked at the cameras. What statement? That Roman manipulated you into fabricating the reconstruction, that the skull has no connection to Sofia, that Mara Ellison paid you to create a public scandal. No. You will explain that emotional stress caused you to mistake childhood fantasies for memory. I said no. Vittorio crouched in front of her. Up close, his calm resembled Roman's, but Roman's control had always contained fear. Vittorio's contained nothing. You believe public exposure protects you. It does not. Public truth is only another story, and stories belong to whoever survives long enough to repeat them. Claire met his gaze. Then you should be afraid. Of whom? Roman? Vittorio laughed. My son lost his accounts, his soldiers and his political protection in a single morning. He let them go. For you, that should frighten you more. The lights flickered. One officer looked toward the ceiling. Vittorio did not move. A low mechanical vibration passed through the gallery, then stopped. He stood. Bring the original skulls. An officer wheeled in the transport case Claire had carried from the courthouse. Vittorio opened it and removed Sofia's remains. Claire strained against the restraints. Put her down. He placed the skull beneath the painted reconstruction. 2 faces, one made from Sofia's bones, one created to resemble Claire. Vittorio positioned the camera. This is what power looks like, Mrs. Morgan, a dead girl beneath a living woman's face. One body used to erase another. You are proud of this. I am practical. No, you're terrified of being remembered accurately. His eyes hardened. Claire continued. Mercer Evelyn Shaw. Sofia, my mother, you changed names because you could not change what you did. Vittorio struck her. The blow turned her face sideways. Claire tasted blood. The officers looked away. Vittorio straightened his cuff. You have Roman's talent for mistaking defiance for strength. Claire slowly looked back at him. And you have his face without anything worth saving beneath it. For 1 second, rage broke through his control. Then the museum alarms activated. Not loudly, a soft bell chimed through the gallery. Once, twice, 3 times the lights shut off. Emergency lamps illuminated the marble statues from below, turning the room into a forest of white ghosts. One officer raised his weapon. What happened? The other checked his radio. No signal. Vittorio looked toward the upper balcony. Seal the east entrance. A crash thundered somewhere inside the museum, then another. Marble breaking, glass collapsing. A screen flickered to life behind Claire. Roman appeared on a security camera in the outer gallery. His black coat was gone. His shirt was dark with rain. Blood ran from one side of his forehead. He moved alone between the statues. An officer appeared behind him. Roman turned, disarmed the man, and drove him through a glass display. The feed changed. Another camera showed flames spreading across a private records room. Vittorio stared at the burning files. No, for the first time, Claire heard fear in his voice. On the screens, Roman emptied fuel across paintings, ledgers, and property deeds. He had come to destroy everything that could preserve the DeLuca empire. One of the officers aimed at the monitor. "Where is he?" the speakers crackled. Roman's voice filled the gallery. "Father." Vittorio stepped toward the central camera. "You have no men left. I know. No money. I know. No judge will protect you. I know." Vittorio looked at Claire. "And you still came." A pause. Then Roman answered, "I did not come for protection." The marble floor trembled. A section of the upper gallery collapsed, sending statues crashing into the darkness. The officers dragged Vittorio behind a column. Claire pulled harder against the restraints. Roman's voice returned through the speakers. "You buried Sofia because she chose Claire." Another crash. "You buried Claire because she remembered you." The main doors shook beneath a violent impact. "And you taught me to bury everyone I loved before they could be taken." Vittorio drew a pistol. "Roman, she exposed you. Yes, she destroyed your name. Yes, she will never forgive you." The doors bent inward. Roman's answer came quietly. "She does not have to." The locks tore free. Smoke rolled into the gallery. Roman entered through the broken doorway. He held a weapon in one hand. Blood covered the other. His eyes found Claire immediately. Everything cold in his face became something more dangerous. Relief. Vittorio pressed his pistol against the side of Claire's head. Roman stopped. "Drop it!" Roman lowered his weapon to the floor. Vittorio smiled. "There he is, the boy beneath the empire." Roman's gaze never left Claire. "Are you hurt?" She looked at the blood on his clothes. "Less than you." That was not the question. Vittorio pushed the barrel harder against her skin. "You still speak to her as though she belongs to you." Roman's expression changed. "No," he stepped forward. "She is the first person who never did." Vittorio's finger tightened on the trigger. Claire saw Roman calculate the distance, the angle, the chance of reaching her. Then a recorded voice echoed from Sofia's room through the museum speakers. "Roman, if you are hearing this, then Emily came back." Vittorio turned toward the sound. Roman moved, the gallery erupted. Claire heard one shot. Marble shattered behind her. Roman crossed the room and struck Vittorio aside as the chair overturned. Claire hit the floor. The painted sculpture of her face tipped from its pedestal. Roman covered Claire with his body. The sculpture crashed beside them, breaking through the mouth and both eyes. Smoke filled the gallery. Roman cut through her restraints. Vittorio disappeared behind the fallen statues with the officers. Claire seized Roman's shirt. Sofia's skull. The ceiling groaned above them. "We leave now. I'm not abandoning her again." Roman looked toward the skull lying beneath falling dust. Pain crossed his face, then he rose. He lifted Sofia's remains in one arm and pulled Claire against him with the other. A massive statue collapsed across the exit. Roman turned his body, shielding both women as marble exploded around them. The floor cracked beneath his feet. Claire clung to him. "Where do we go?" Roman looked toward the underground gallery as darkness opened below. The only way left. He carried Claire and Sofia into the collapsing museum. Behind them, Vittorio's voice echoed through the smoke. "You cannot save both of them this time." Roman stopped at the edge of the broken floor, then he looked down at Claire. "No," he said. The grief in his eyes was 22 years old. "But I can die trying." The broken floor dropped beneath Roman's feet. Claire felt his arm tightened around her as marble, smoke, and darkness swallowed them. They struck a sloping section of collapsed gallery. Roman turned in the fall, taking the impact across his back, while keeping Claire and Sofia's skull against his chest. Stone cracked around them. For several seconds, Claire heard nothing but the high ringing in her ears. Then Roman breathed against her hair. "Claire, I'm here. Can you move?" "Yes." That was not an order. It sounded like one. His arm loosened. Claire rolled onto the wet floor beneath the museum. They had fallen into an older tunnel lined with marble storage crates and rusted tracks. Roman remained on his back. He still held Sofia. Even unconscious for half a moment, he had not released her. Claire knelt beside him. "Roman," His eyes opened. Blood spread beneath his shirt near his ribs, not from the fall. A narrow wound darkened the fabric beneath his coat. You were shot. It passed through. She tore the shirt open. There was an exit wound, but blood continued to rise around it. You need pressure. We need to move. Stop saying that. The gallery above us is collapsing. As if answering him, marble thundered overhead. Dust poured from the ceiling. Claire pressed fabric against his side. Roman caught her wrist. Take Sofia. I can carry both of you. No, you carried us. That was before the floor. She lifted the skull from his arm and placed it inside the padded transport case. Roman watched until the lid closed. Only then did he attempt to stand. His legs failed. Claire caught him beneath the shoulder. You are not dying here. I had not planned to. You don't plan death. You only arrange everyone else's survival around it. Something almost resembling a smile touched his mouth. You have learned me quickly. I have been studying your damage for 22 years, without knowing its names. They moved through the tunnel together. Roman leaned more heavily on her with every step. Behind them, Vittorio's voice echoed through the museum's emergency system. Roman stopped. Speakers had been installed even this far below. You burned the collection, Vittorio continued. Do you understand what was inside those records? Everything you valued? Evidence against senators, judges, rival families. Protection generations of DeLucas died to acquire. Roman looked at Claire. Protection is an expensive word for fear. Vittorio's laughter traveled through the tunnel. You sound like her now. Good. The tunnel opened into an underground gallery larger than the one above. Dozens of marble figures stood beneath canvas covers. Some were unfinished. Others showed faces Claire recognized from cold cases. At the center stood a surveillance station. 6 monitors still functioned. Roman guided Claire toward them. What is this room? My father's archive. Claire set down Sofia's case and activated the central console. Security feeds appeared from across the museum. Federal vehicles surrounded the exterior gates. Vittorio's remaining officers were barricading the eastern wing. A second feed showed Mara Ellison outside with a national broadcast crew. Roman stared at the monitors. My father can shut down the building's communication system. Can we override it? Only from his private console. Claire looked at the access panel. Biometric lock. Roman placed his hand against the scanner. The system rejected him. Guardian authority revoked. Vittorio's face appeared on the central screen. Your name no longer opens my doors. Roman swayed beside Claire. She supported him. Vittorio looked toward her. Miss Morgan, the offer remains. Deny the reconstruction, and you walk out. Claire opened the transport case. Sofia's skull stared upward beneath the white monitor light. No. You are willing to die for a woman you never knew. I knew her, Vittorio smiled. You remember fragments. I know what she chose. And what did Roman choose? Claire felt Roman become still beside her. Vittorio continued. He found Sofia alive. He left her for you. Ask him how long she called his name after he walked away. Roman closed his eyes. Stop, Claire said. Why? You wanted the buried truth. Vittorio leaned toward the camera. She begged him not to leave. Roman's hand tightened against the console. I heard her, he said. Claire turned toward him. His face had lost all color. She told me Margaret's car had taken the northern road. My father's men were 20 minutes behind you. You chose to follow. Yes, and when you returned, Roman looked at Sofia's remains. She was still alive. Claire's breath stopped. For how long? Minutes. What did she say? His voice became rough. She asked whether you were safe. Claire pressed a hand over her mouth. I told her yes, and then she said that meant I had chosen correctly. Roman's eyes filled, though no tears fell. I knew she was lying for me. Vittorio's voice came through the speakers. She always understood weakness better than you. Roman raised his weapon toward the screen. Claire caught his hand. He wants you looking backward. There is nothing else in me. That is not true. What do you see? The question was almost angry. Claire held his gaze. A man who keeps turning guilt into a grave. The words struck him. You buried Sofia, you buried Emily Vale. You buried the truth, and then you tried to bury yourself inside my life. Roman lowered the weapon. What should I have done? Stayed. With Sofia. With the consequences. The lights flickered, a timer appeared on the screens. Structural purge. 08. Roman looked toward the ceiling. My father has triggered the demolition charges beneath the museum. Claire searched the console. If the feeds are connected, we can broadcast. The system requires Guardian authorization. Yours was revoked. There may be another route. He opened a steel cabinet beneath the monitors. Inside lay a blood-stained ledger and a silver signet ring. Roman's family ring. He placed it into the console. The system activated. DeLuca succession protocol. Current patriarch, Vittorio DeLuca. Challenge authority? Roman selected yes. A camera turned toward him. A recorded legal statement appeared. To challenge the patriarch, the successor must publicly surrender all private assets, family protections, and territorial claims. Claire looked at him. Roman, if you do this, you lose everything that remains. He pressed confirm. I lost it before sunrise. Account numbers filled the screen. Properties, companies, judicial agreements, hidden trusts. Roman transferred every asset to federal seizure. The console asked one final question. Declare cause of challenge. Roman looked into the camera. My father murdered Sofia DeLuca, ordered the assassination of Daniel Mercer, falsified evidence, imprisoned witnesses, and attempted to kill Claire Morgan. His voice remained calm. I concealed Sofia's identity and obstructed justice for 20 years. Claire exposed me truthfully. I accept responsibility for everything done in her name. Claire stared at him. He was not asking forgiveness. He was making escape impossible. The system unlocked. Broadcast access granted. Claire connected the museum surveillance archive to the external news feed. Every monitor outside changed. Vittorio appeared on screen in the upper gallery, ordering officers to destroy evidence and eliminate Claire. His confession from the earlier confrontation replayed. Sofia chose Claire. Roman found her alive. He left to save the child. Vittorio ordered her death. Mara's broadcast captured everything. Outside, federal agents breached the museum gates. Vittorio saw the live transmission. His face changed. You ungrateful son. Roman leaned toward the microphone. You taught me that blood was inheritance. He looked at Sofia. She taught me it was a choice. The timer reached 5 minutes. Gunfire echoed from the tunnel behind them. Roman pushed Claire beneath the surveillance desk as rounds shattered the monitors. Vittorio emerged through the smoke with 2 officers. Roman fired back. One officer fell behind a statue. The second fled as federal voices filled the upper passage. Vittorio took cover behind Sofia's marble portrait. You destroyed the family for a woman who exposed you. Roman moved away from Claire, drawing his father's aim. No, he fired at the support above Vittorio. A marble beam collapsed between them. I destroyed it because you taught me to bury everyone I loved. Vittorio stepped through the dust and fired. Roman jerked backward. Claire screamed. He remained standing long enough to fire once. The weapon flew from Vittorio's hand. Federal agents flooded the far entrance and forced the older man to the floor. Vittorio stared at Roman as restraints closed around his wrists. You chose wrong again. Roman pressed a hand to his chest. Blood spread between his fingers. No, his eyes found Claire. This time she got to choose. The demolition timer reached 2 minutes. Federal agents shouted for evacuation. Claire ran to Roman. He had been struck below the shoulder. Blood flowed rapidly beneath his hand. She dragged his arm around her neck. We're leaving together. Sofia. I have her. They moved toward the emergency stairwell as the gallery shook. Roman stumbled. Claire refused to release him. Above them, rain poured through the broken museum roof. Federal lights flashed against falling marble. They reached the outer courtyard, seconds before the underground gallery collapsed. Roman fell to his knees in the rain. Claire knelt with him. Mara's cameras turned toward them, but federal officers blocked the view. Claire pressed both hands against Roman's wound. "Stay awake." He looked at Sofia's transport case beside her. "Give her the face she had before us." "I will, not mine." "Not yours, hers." Roman's breathing faltered. Claire caught his face. "You don't get to leave after making me understand you. I did not intend to. You never intend the damage. You only accept it afterward." He looked at her mouth. Claire understood. She kissed him, not because the rain made the moment beautiful, not because he was wounded, not because his sacrifice erased what he had done. She kissed the man who had saved her, watched her, controlled her, and finally surrendered the power he had used to justify all three. Roman's hand rose to her cheek. This time he did not stop before touching her. When the kiss ended, his forehead rested against hers. "I thought you would taste like forgiveness. I haven't forgiven you. I know. Stay alive and earn it." Something softened in his eyes. For the first time, that sounds possible. Medics reached them. As they lifted Roman onto a stretcher, Claire looked down at Sofia's case. A drop of Roman's blood had fallen through a crack in the lid. It rested on Sofia's reconstructed clay cheek like a single red tear. 3 weeks after the Marble Museum collapsed, Sofia DeLuca received her face back. Claire stood alone beneath the white lights of the temporary forensic laboratory and pressed the final layer of clay along Sofia's jaw. Not Claire's jaw, not the proportions Roman had created 22 years earlier. Sofia's. The original dental records had given Claire the lower face. Childhood photographs restored the shape of the nose. Roman's memories supplied what science could not the way. Sofia lifted one eyebrow when she doubted someone, the fullness beneath her eyes when she laughed, the slight downward turn of her mouth when she was trying not to show fear. Claire had spent years reconstructing strangers from bone. Sofia was the first face she built, from evidence, memory, and love belonging to someone else. On the table beside the sculpture lay a sealed envelope from the Federal Detention Center. Vittorio DeLuca had been charged with murder, conspiracy, obstruction, and the Mercer assassination. Former officers were naming judges. Witnesses hidden under false identities were beginning to return. Greyford had spent decades calling the DeLucas untouchable. Now, reporters stood outside the courthouse each morning, waiting for another piece of the family to fall. Roman's name appeared beside his father's in every report. Criminal, informant, protector, architect of the cover-up, the man who destroyed it. Claire had refused every interview asking her to decide which description was true. Roman was still under federal guard at St. Catherine's Hospital. The bullets had been removed, but internal damage had required 2 surgeries. Doctors said he was recovering. Roman said nothing. He had not allowed Claire to visit. She knew because she had tried every day. A nurse finally gave her a message written in his hand. "Finish Sofia first." Claire hated him for making the request sound like an order. She obeyed anyway. At noon, she placed glass eyes into the reconstruction. Gray-green, softer than Roman's. The resemblance became immediate. Claire stepped back. For the first time, the woman beneath the courthouse no longer looked like the child she had died protecting. She looked like herself. Claire opened Roman's envelope. Inside was a photograph of Sofia at 19, standing on the courthouse roof, with her hair blown across her face. On the back, Roman had written, "She hated formal portraits," she said. "People looked most honest when the wind was ruining them." Claire adjusted one strand of sculpted hair across Sofia's forehead. Then she whispered, "There you are." The public identification ceremony was held that evening in the surviving north wing of the Marble Museum. Federal investigators wanted the reconstruction unveiled inside the courthouse. Claire refused. Sofia had been hidden beneath Greyford's symbols of justice for 22 years. She would receive her name inside the place that had turned victims into trophies. The eyeless statues had been removed. The hidden gallery was now open to reporters, families, and investigators. Empty pedestals carried the names of witnesses whose identities were still being restored. At the center stood Sofia's reconstructed face beneath a white cloth. Claire entered through the rear doors. The room fell silent. She searched the crowd for Roman, even though she knew he would not be there. Then, as the outer doors opened, 2 federal officers entered first. Roman walked between them. He wore a black suit without a tie. His skin was pale, and his movements were measured. No restraints circled his wrists, but the agents remained close enough to remind everyone that his freedom was temporary. Claire's anger disappeared beneath fear. He should not have been out of the hospital. Roman found her immediately. For a moment, the crowded gallery ceased to exist. His gaze moved over her face, as if checking for injuries he already knew were not there. Claire crossed the room. "You refused to see me. I needed you to finish. You could have told me that while I was standing beside your hospital bed. You were not permitted beside my hospital bed, because you gave the order." Yes, she wanted to strike him again. Instead, she looked at the stiffness beneath his jacket. "You're hurt. I am standing. That is not the same thing. It is enough for tonight." The ceremony began before she could question him further. Mara Ellison spoke first, reading the confirmed findings into the public record. The remains recovered beneath the Greyford County Courthouse have been formally identified as Sofia Isabella DeLuca, age 19. The name echoed through the gallery. Not Jane Doe, not Emily Vale, not Claire Morgan. Sofia Isabella DeLuca. Claire removed the white cloth. A collective breath moved through the room. Roman did not react at first. He simply stared. The feared man who had faced armed officers, federal seizure, and the destruction of his empire without visible emotion now looked like the 18-year-old boy Claire had seen hidden inside him. His mouth opened. No sound came. Claire stepped closer. "Is it her?" Roman's eyes moved over the reconstructed features. The left eyebrow should be higher. Claire adjusted it with her thumb. Roman almost smiled. She would say, "You made her too serious." What would you say? That you remembered her better than I deserved. Mara invited him to speak. Roman walked to the microphone. Reporters lifted cameras. Some victims' families turned away from him. Others watched with open hatred. Roman accepted both. "My sister died because she protected a child my father intended to erase," he said. "I concealed Sofia's identity because revealing it would have exposed that child." His eyes found Claire. "I called that protection." The gallery remained silent. It was fear. "I decided that keeping Claire alive gave me the right to control the truth around her. It did not." Claire felt tears rise. Roman continued. "Sofia gave her life so another person could remain free. I used that sacrifice to build a cage no one could see." His hand tightened around the edge of the podium. "For 22 years, I believed burying evidence was the price of keeping Claire alive. Sofia understood what I did not." He looked at his sister's face. "You cannot save someone by making her live inside your secrets." Roman stepped away from the microphone. Federal officers moved toward him, but he raised one hand. "I need a minute." Claire followed him into the side corridor. "Roman!" He kept walking. The corridor descended toward the surviving underground gallery. "You should be in a hospital." "I have been in enough guarded rooms." "What did the doctors say?" "That the surgery succeeded." "That is not what I asked." He reached the lower staircase and gripped the railing. Claire saw blood on his palm. Her fear became certainty. "Roman." He looked down at the red stain as though it belonged to someone else. The internal stitches did not hold. "How long have you known?" "Since this morning." "You left the hospital knowing you were bleeding." Sofia had waited 22 years. Claire caught his coat. "And I was supposed to lose you after the ceremony. You were supposed to remember her face, not mine. You do not get to choose my memories." His knees weakened. Claire lowered him onto the steps. "Call the medics," she shouted. Roman caught her wrist. "They are already coming. Then stay awake." He looked toward the underground room where Sofia's false face had once stood. "I wanted to see the gallery empty. You saw it. No trophies, no sealed files, no one beneath another name." His breathing became shallow. Claire pressed both hands against his side. Blood spread through the black fabric. "You said you would earn forgiveness. I was ambitious. Don't. You told me to stay alive, and you ignored the first order I ever gave you. I tried." Claire pulled him against her. Footsteps sounded above, still too far away. Roman touched her cheek. There was no hesitation this time. "What do you see when you look at me?" he asked. She remembered the answer she had once given him in anger. A man who keeps turning guilt into a grave. Now she saw more. The boy who had held Emily Vale's hand beneath the courthouse clock. The brother who chose one life and never survived the loss of the other. The feared man who had mistaken obsession for devotion, until love finally required him to surrender control. Claire pressed her forehead to his. "A man who must stop burying people to protect them." Roman's eyes softened. "I have. No, you're burying yourself now. There is nothing left to hide beneath me. There is a life. For you. For us." The words reached him too late. Hope entered his face with such quiet wonder that Claire understood he had never truly believed she might include him in a future. "You would have stayed," he whispered. "I would have made you answer for everything. I expected that. I would have hated you some mornings. Most mornings. I would have loved you anyway." Roman closed his eyes. A tear moved from the corner of one eye into his hair. Claire had never seen him cry. "Look at me." He obeyed. "I love the man who told the truth when it cost him everything," she said. "I love the boy who came back for Sofia. I love the damaged, impossible man who finally let me choose." His thumb moved across her cheek. "And the rest? The rest would have spent a lifetime earning it." A faint smile touched his mouth. "That sounds like a life I could have wanted." "You still can." Roman looked toward the ceiling, where Sofia's name was being spoken by strangers who would never again call her unidentified. "She has her face. Yes, and you have your name. Yes." His hand weakened against Claire's skin. "Then I did not bury everyone." "No." Claire kissed him. There was no gunfire this time, no collapsing marble, no father waiting in the darkness. Only a woman holding the man she could not forgive quickly enough, and could not stop loving soon enough. When she pulled away, Roman's eyes remained on her. For one final moment he looked peaceful. Then his hand slipped from her cheek. "Roman!" The footsteps reached the lower staircase. Claire said his name again. He did not answer. Months later, the Marble Museum reopened as the Sofia DeLuca Center for Forensic Identification. The first gallery held reconstructed faces of people whose names had been stolen by the Courthouse network. The second taught families how to submit records for unidentified remains. Sofia's portrait stood near the entrance beneath a simple plaque. She chose to be remembered truthfully. Roman received no statue. Claire would not let Greyford turn him into a hero. She would not let it reduce him to a monster either. His crimes remained in the public record beside his confession. His assets funded the identification center and compensation for the families his empire had harmed. In Claire's private studio stood one unfinished sculpture, Roman's face. She had completed the bones, the eyes, and the restrained line of his mouth, but she never chose his final expression. Some days she remembered the feared mafia boss entering her laboratory through the rain. Other days she remembered the wounded man beneath the museum, asking what she saw. On the anniversary of Sofia's identification, Claire placed the old photograph of 3 children beneath the sculpture: Emily, Roman, Sofia. The night before one face was buried and 3 lives disappeared beneath it, Claire touched Roman's unfinished cheek. "You were wrong," she whispered. "You did leave something behind." Outside, rain began falling over Greyford. Visitors entered the center, carrying photographs, dental records and names that had waited years to be spoken. Claire turned from Roman's face and walked toward them, because the man who had spent his life burying people to protect her had left her one final inheritance: the courage to uncover them all.